Hey, Warren Eckstein here. Is your dog, is your cat suffering with a midlife crisis? Before you say, this guy Warren is absolutely nuts, he's going way too far with dog and cat psychology, hear me out. What happens to human beings when they go through a midlife crisis? This is an article I wrote in 2011. That's what, 20 years ago? 10 years? Oh, 10 years ago. And I wrote one similar before that, but I want to talk about it because a lot of the calls I receive on both the Los Angeles Pet Show and the National Canadian Pet Show has to do with dogs and cats that were doing fine, but all of a sudden, 2 years old, 3 years old, sometimes 4 years old, their behavior kind of changed a little bit. So what happened there? Well, think about it from our perspective. Think about what people do when they go through a midlife crisis. You may get your hair dyed. You may get a brand new car. Guys, see all these guys driving around Southern California. They're my age in these little sport Porsches. They can't get in and out of them, but they look cool, I guess. So you might get yourself a new car. Southern California, they get themselves a new wife or a new girlfriend. However, when people go through a midlife crisis, it's simply because they're not feeling comfortable where they are at that moment. So therefore, they try to revert back to things that are going to make them feel better. Do our dogs and cats go through that as well? Well, think about it. The average dog or cat living in your home or my home has an incredible life. They go out in the backyard, we take them for a walk, they go to the vet. However, it's a routine. And after a year or 2 years or 3 years or 4 years of doing the same thing over and over and over again, maybe your dog or cat is getting a little bored. Maybe they are going through a little bit of a midlife crisis. So how do you tell if your dog's going through a midlife crisis? Well, they're not going to get their hair dyed. Well, maybe some will. They're not going to get a new car. But they become a little bit more lethargic, a little bit more depressed, sometimes anxious, sometimes even aggressive. They're really bored with life the way it is. They love you, they love their home, they love their life, but they need something a little bit more. We all do. Every living thing needs something a little bit more. So if you have a dog or you have a cat that's reaching that age category, 2, 3 years old, it's important to take a look. And let me just kind of share this with you. Your dogs can suffer from their own midlife crisis, particularly if their lives become one big routine, day in and day out, with nothing to keep them interested and alert. Our pets can become bored, depressed, lethargic, experience personality as well as behavior changes, just like people going through a midlife crisis. At the other end of the behavior spectrum of depression and lethargy is acting our pets the way they do. So you may see changes in their behavior. The dog that chewed when it was a puppy and stopped all of a sudden may start chewing again when it reaches 2 or 3 years old. Why? Well, there's a good possibility it goes back in its head and says, you know what? When I did this, I got so much more attention. Now, they're sitting around watching TV, Netflix every night. They're not paying as much attention to me. So if I do something that I remember that got me attention in the past, I'll get attention again. So those are some of the things that you'll start seeing, the changes in behavior. Now, is it always a major problem? Of course not. Some people get through it. Some dogs get through it right away. But it's important if you do notice your dog kind of reaching that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old category, change it up a little bit. I know what you're saying. They don't play with toys. I don't care whether they play with toys or not. Go out and get some new toys. Get down on all fours. Put them in your mouth. Tease them a little bit. Get them moving a little bit. If you normally take them for a ride to one park, take them to a ride to a different park. If they're dog friendly and get along with other dogs, have some play dates for them as well. It's important. A lot of people don't realize that mental stimulation is not a human characteristic alone. Mental stimulation is for everyone out there. And so many times I hear on the radio show, Warren, I've had the dog and he's doing fine, and all of a sudden he changes behavior. That's different though than the dog you adopted. And bless you guys for adopting those 2, 3, 4-year-old dogs from the shelters and the older ones as well. Sometimes it's not a midlife crisis with them because they never really enjoyed life. They never really knew what life was all about. So you don't have to worry about their midlife crisis, but you do have to worry about keeping them mentally stimulated. And the more mental stimulation you give your dog or your cat, the less apt they are to get into this midlife crisis. So is a midlife crisis real? It may not be real to you. You may never looked at it that way. It may not be real to your veterinarian. However, to someone like myself, an ego aside, who's worked with over 40,000 animals and answers probably more pet questions than anybody else in the world on a regular basis, it's pretty common, a lot more common than you think it is. All of a sudden, the dog's doing this. All of a sudden, the dog never had accidents in the house. Now he's having accidents. What can you do to help him? Go out and buy him a new bed. Buy him new toys. Get him a new leash. Get him a new coat. Get him a new jacket. Get him a new sweater. Get him a new bowl. Get him a new dish. Whatever you need to do. Those changes at first maybe your dog may hesitate a little bit about it, but even that hesitation is good because it makes that mind work a little bit more. So here's the answer. Do your dogs and your cats suffer from a midlife crisis? Well, it may not be the same type of midlife crisis that you or I having. I mean, they're not looking in the mirror saying, oh God, my hair's gray, I have a wrinkle here, I got another wrinkle here, my belly's getting bigger. They don't do it that way. But what they do is they notice that everything is always stagnant. If you think about instinctive behavior, the instinct of a dog is to do things. The instinct of a cat is to do things. Yet they live with us and they don't have the opportunity to do things they would do in the wild, which is much safer. That's why I'm a big advocate of keeping your cats inside. But yes, our dogs and our cats can go through a midlife crisis. If you notice changes, first thing you want to do always is get a veterinary checkup. But if you notice changes in your pet's behavior, don't hesitate to say, you know what, let me make some changes. Let me see what I can do to maybe encourage the dog or the cat to exercise more. Or can I give him more mental stimulation? Or can I help him feel better about himself? Midlife crisis, don't poo-poo it. No pun intended. It's real, and there's a lot of stuff you can do about it. I'm Warren Eckstein. Don't miss the Pet Show. We're talking more about the midlife crisis there as well. Pet Show, Saturday mornings, Saturday afternoons. Check out the website, thepetshow.com.